You didn't start your career in advisory. In fact, you were in drilling.
We went to some interesting places, spent some time in the jungle in Vietnam, got hit by a typhoon, got chased down by bears in the middle of Canada, right? But it was fun. So I came back, was introduced to Edward Jones Advisor, but along that way, kind of fell into a niche by accident. And that was helping clients with some of their real estate.
Tell us a little bit about what are the good parts and what are some of the hard parts of running things on your own.
For me, especially, I really try to focus on the parts that I love, that I like the puzzle, that I like the clients. And so I think the hardest part is knowing what we need to do to get to a place where we can serve the clients.
But there's definitely a little bit more interest in alts, right?
I mean, my practice focuses on something that clients already focus on, which is their real estate. That was the big impetus to separate and form our own thing. Alts are now more available, I think. But then on the supply side, we actually, as more independent advisors, even broker-dealer advisors, now we have access to it. So now we can actually start to really have that conversation.
An interesting real estate angle to your proposition, right? So tell us a little bit more about what that is.
All of us as humans, right? We tend to look at that real estate as our largest asset, our most personal asset. And I have to use the word asset, not the word investment. It made a lot of sense to shift our focus in a way that it seemed like really not many other advisors were doing.
Obviously, moving on from tech is our favorite two-letter. Building an AI company, I myself was fatigued by the end of day 3 of Wealth Management Edge, hearing those 2 letters. But obviously, AI is here to stay.
The sexy and the scary AI.
Correct. Hey, Jeff, lovely to see you. How are you doing?
Good, Vineet. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad you accepted my invite to join us on Advisor Ally today.
Of course. Good to catch up.
And, the last time we met was at a palatial resort in Boca. Although that was a fun 3 days. I think you and I spent a lot of time together there as well. And I appreciate that. But how's life after Wealth Management Edge? Is everything back in sync at work and stuff?
Yeah, getting settled back in, getting caught up a little bit. The weather's not nearly as nice. The setting is not nearly as palatial, but good.
So back in Portland, right?
Back in Portland, yeah. A little bit of downtime before I'm gone the entire month of October for conferences.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay, wow. So I might see you on that circuit again then.
Oh, I hope so.
So Jeff, as I've shared before, this podcast, we bring in folks like you who've got, great stories to tell and hopefully inspire people like me and others who are listening in. And I always love to start the conversation with a little bit about the backstory, right? So what has brought Jeff Dunn-Bernstein here? And obviously, I know that you didn't start your career in advisory. No. In fact, you were in drilling. So, what happened there and how are you here? Tell us a little bit about this journey.
Yeah, sure. No, it was very roundabout for a while, right? So I did a study abroad in Tokyo, Japan, my junior year. And I kind of just assumed I would come back, finish up, and then head back to Japan. And then life happened, right? So I got a job in the auto industry, was working my way towards kind of the finance side of that. Not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I think finance was the goal, and really decided it needed to be more financial advising, insurance space. And just as we were starting that process, the market tanked, right? And so I had that kind of got put on hold. Those calls kind of stopped, and I got a call from a friend saying, hey, I have this drilling company, and we basically search out where the gold is and drill to find out where the next spots are. And we're going to go to really interesting places and we'll hang out the whole time and it pays great. So I said, okay, I'm up for an adventure. Let's do it. We did that for a few years. We went to some interesting places, spent some time in the jungle in Vietnam, got hit by a typhoon. Just interesting stuff. Got chased down by bears in the middle of Canada, just weird stuff, right? But it was fun. And I think I realized, though, when some of the other jobs in the places that we were going to go, Bali, Africa, didn't quite work out or kept being postponed, I realized, I probably need to get back into what I was planning to do. So I came back, was introduced to my in-laws, Edward Jones Advisor, great guy, and started down the path with Edward Jones. So,
And did you strike gold while you were at it?
I don't know. We didn't get to really, I mean, like they see little bits of it or something like that. But yeah, I didn't get to, like see like the giant golden nugget. That wasn't part of our job.
Like, I think the locations that you mentioned, it seems like it was a real adventure the few years that you were at it. And it's interesting. I think I started working around the same time, 2009, and I did get into a bank, and a lot of people questioned my actions back then. But, okay, so after that, you got into advisory. On some days, that can be as much of an adventure as in the jungles of Vietnam, I imagine.
Yeah, I did miss helicoptering to work every day, but I didn't get that at Edward Jones.
Oh, sure. So obviously, Edward Jones was the kind of starting point when it came to financial advisory. And you spent some time there. And then what happened next? Obviously, today it's QE Wealth, right?
Well, so I think I decided that I needed to be able to do a little bit more creative approach. I think it just fit me better than, kind of the traditional door knocking you hear about with Edward Jones, just walking through a community. And so I found a really good group that was set up as a hybrid with LPL and got along with them great and was there for about 10 years. But along that way, kind of fell into a niche by accident. And that was helping clients with some of their real estate. And it just got a little bit difficult, I think, to try to build what I wanted to build on that platform. And so looked around a little bit, decided I might be a little bit more than some of the other RIAs wanted to handle with what I was trying to put together and what they would have to do for oversight. And so ended up launching my own and we separated from LPL on good terms. They were a great place to be with. January 1, launched our own and went independent.
Understood. And it's almost like, what we talk about, the crawl, walk, run approach. You start with a large org, then you go into a hybrid, and now you're out on your own. And clearly on one side, the great part about it is that slowly you're like this bird out of the cage, right? You have as much independence as you want right now. But tell us a little bit about what are the good parts and what are some of the hard parts of running things on your own. And also, it's interesting because there's a lot of this happening in the industry, right? A lot of people are breaking away, setting up shop on their own.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely a lot of parts to it, right? And I think for me, especially, like I really try to focus on the parts that I love. And I like building things and I like the puzzle, but I like the clients. And so I think the hardest part is knowing what we need to do to get to a place where we can serve the clients. But all of that work involved is not client work, right? It's compliance, it's paperwork, it's setting up workflows, it's documentation, right? It's all of those other things that are actually taking us away from clients in hope that we can then better serve them and spend more time with them maybe down the road, right? So that's been, I think, the hardest part this year, right? Is all of that other work that, LPL's back office used to do. And now I've got to do it in managing both.
Sure, it's almost like, not almost like, it is like, it is entrepreneurship, right? And you don't realize that you're the CEO, the chief sales officer, also sometimes the janitor of the company, right? So I think, I can relate. On the other side, on the macro side, and obviously you've evolved as an advisor, right, Jeff, the last 10, 15 years. Let's hope so. How have you seen the industry change? Anything that, like, from your perspective, what's been the kind of...
I think it's interesting. I think when you brought up the move to the independent space, right? I don't know. I haven't been in it for decades and decades, right? But I think it's more of a cycle, right? I think you have the independent groups, and now, like, we've heard and seen a lot about the M&A activity that's going on the last few years, and the RIAs that then became aggregators. And I think you see that aggregation, you see all the roll up. And then you see people break off and start up their own, right? And then you've now started to see then some of those. So LPL is trying to acquire everybody, right? But then people break off, then they build up and then they start to acquire, right? And then you have people go, no, this is too big. And then they break off, right? And then that RIA gets acquired. So, I don't have the historical data to see like how much is actually changing, I guess. But to me, it looks more cyclical, right? The people that want to be independent, they're always going to hit that threshold where they're not independent enough. They're going to start their own. Then they're going to try to build something. People are going to be attracted to that. And then the cycle continues.
Sure. I think the LPL Commonwealth saga is quite interesting right now. I think, and, that is quite interesting. Obviously, I haven't spent as much time in the industry as you have. And I look at it as a big trend in terms of consolidation, M&A, so on and so forth. But I take your point that, sometimes you consolidate, then you become big and then somebody wants to break away. So it is a bit of a kind of virtuous cycle. Yeah, that's something that kind of I'm taking away from this conversation. That's very interesting. On the other side of the equation, obviously you're perhaps from a younger generation when it comes to advisors, right? And that's the other big thing that people talk about. The kind of median age of an advisor is probably in the 50s, and that's also one of the reasons why there's a lot of kind of M&A activity, people wanting to kind of move on, sell their company, and so on and so forth. I mean, I'm coming at this from a couple of angles. And are you seeing a lot of younger folks getting into advisory, because there's this big talk of there being a talent crunch?
Yeah.
And maybe a kind of subsequent but related question. Obviously, the advisor is one side of the story. Then you have the clients on the other side, right? And obviously, that is also changing from the older generations to the newer generations. And are these clients different from those? Like what is your take from what you've seen?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things there. I think as far as the clients go, right? Like there's a lot of conversation around that. And again, like I'm sure there's a ton of data to support that. The younger clients that I have, and I have clients that are retired, I have clients that are entering retirement that are still in prime working years. I have some younger clients. I don't really see, other than maybe a little bit more dabbling in crypto, which then usually ends, right? And they come back and say, never mind, just here's the 10 grand left from the 100 grand or the whatever it is, right? I don't see a ton of that. I have clients that call and they want to be collaborative. And I think that may be the new trend, right? Like you had another podcast guest that was talking about the trend being now maybe more collaborative as opposed to prescriptive. But I feel like that's been the majority of the way that I've worked with clients moving forward. Previously, like since we started. And I think it's just going to get more so as we move forward, right? But even my older clients, we talk about what it is that they want and I throw out ideas and then they give me more data. And so I've always taken that approach, or that's always been the approach that my clients have demanded, I guess.
And the other question, are you seeing more folks excited about the space?
Maybe. I think Edge was really good, right? I mean, I've been to that conference a few times and I think it was good. There was a lot more female advisors. There was more events geared towards female advisors. And there was a crowd of younger people that I think were brought in specifically. Yep. And I didn't get to spend a ton of time talking to them, right? Like we had other events, but I think Michael Kitsis was outside surrounded by a throng of 20 somethings, and he spent a ton of time talking to them. I mean, I think that says a lot for maybe the hope that we're going to get some younger people in sooner rather than later. And maybe we don't have to do all of that work. Maybe some of the universities or some of the other institutions are trying to help do some of that so that then we have those people available to collaborate.
Right. Got it. No, I think definitely there will always be a little bit of a churn, but I think there will be fresh young blood that comes into, and you're right. I think Edge was kind of proof point of that in some ways. Yeah, I love the point you make about the younger clients only being different when it comes to things like crypto. But, and it's that also seems like it depends on the season, right? Sometimes it's what everyone wants. Sometimes it's what everyone wants to stay away from. But there's definitely a little bit more interest in alts, right? In terms of people wanting to diversify away from just public.
And from both sides, right? And I think that's as somebody, right? I mean, my practice focuses on something that clients already focus on, which is their real estate, right? That was the big impetus to separate and form our own thing. But, alts are now more available, I think, right? And so there's a lot of conversation around the big foundations and how they've been using them historically. It's been democratized a little bit more. So I think, yes, there's maybe a little bit more marketing out there for it, a little bit more understanding of how it's being used. But then on the supply side, like we actually, as more independent advisors, even broker-dealer advisors, now we have access to it. So now we can actually start to really have that conversation, right? We needed both.
Yeah. And I had a couple of conversations with all distributors, producers as well at the conference. And I mean, definitely this is a conversation that's on people's minds as well. But having said that, I think it's a good segue, Jeff. Let's talk about your current practice a little bit. And I know there is an interesting real estate angle to your proposition, right? So tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you're trying to kind of do with QE.
So I think like we really fell into it. It landed on us. We had a great friend, mortgage broker, that brought us a client that was having some issues getting qualified, had a very, very good accountant that made it difficult for them. And so we kind of fumbled our way through it, and there really wasn't anything out there to help us, and we got it done. And then I took a little bit of a break and thought, I think that maybe something, like I wish there had been something to kind of guide us along what we were trying to accomplish. And we looked everywhere and there really wasn't. And so then when we took a little bit of time and started to kind of maybe build it out as more of an offensive program, thinking, this is probably something that could be more useful to clients than, somebody showing up once every 10 years. And from there, I think we really just opened ourselves up to have conversations about real estate, something that traditionally on the primary residence side of things, a client, right, and all of us as humans, right, we tend to look at that real estate as our largest asset, our most personal asset, right?
Yep.
And I have to use the word asset, not the word investment, right? And so I think it just made sense to really take a step back and listen to other professionals and listen to the clients about how they were thinking about real estate, right? And I think from there, once we figured out kind of how to engage with it, it made a lot of sense to shift our focus in a way that it seemed like really not many other advisors were doing, to just allow for a little bit of space, right? And to be able to have those genuine conversations with clients and help integrate the thing that they were already considering as maybe one of the most or the most important asset to them and their family, along with everything else that we were helping them with.
So what does that mean in practice, Jeff? So if I were a client of yours, what would that conversation look like? And would that go beyond, say, my primary residence and to, say, other exposure that I may want to get into from a real estate standpoint? Is that, what would that look like?
Yeah, so I think everything from looking at the impact that real estate, a purchase or a sale or an exchange may have on our kind of traditional view of wealth management and the things that we look at as advisors. And there's a lot of facets, right? Like we have so many levers that we can pull as an advisor. You can go to any planning software and see all of the different adjustments that we can make for a 30-year forecast, right? But the really interesting thing to me, right, as kind of a puzzle person, is when we add real estate, we add so many more additional levers, and then all of the places that those levers intersect with all of our traditional levers that we can pull, right? So now we have this entire extra world opens up of all of the different ways that we can use our traditional wealth management strategies, some drawn in from outside, leveraging real estate, leveraging our wealth management assets that we help the client with for the real estate that they're trying to get, right? And so it just multiplies all of the different things that we get to play with to help solve problems for the
it's an interesting niche, obviously, and it's and in some ways it was kind of just taken for granted previously, and like, okay, you got this asset, so we don't need to do anything or discuss more about it.
I don't think it was that like flippant of a response from our industry. I think that the way, if you look at like the history of our industry, like my assumption, and I'm not a great financial markets historian or anything, right? But I think when we look at the way that you called somebody up back in the day and you sold them a stock and then you made a commission, right? And then slowly maybe we transitioned into advisory, and then it was the AUM focus, and now we get to just charge, and now we're right alongside doing better when you do better, right? And as one of your guests said, maybe a transitioning to a flat fee then from there, right? So there's this evolution, and I think just along the way, there just wasn't space for the real estate to come in, right? Nowhere in there are you making a commission unless you're a realtor, right? On the purchase or sale of a primary residence, right? The only thing you're doing historically as an advisor is like, hopefully you're not losing a lot of assets when they pay cash for a house or something, right? And like that was probably where the majority of the focus was in relationship to a property purchase or sale, right? Or, hey, they're going to sell their house. We're going to get an influx of assets that we're going to continue to manage. But I think we can be a lot more creative, and we can be a lot more intentional with how we buy it, how we hold it, what the plans are for down the road when we sell it, for the estate planning portion of it, right? And that's just on a primary residence. That doesn't count anything then that we may actually be licensed to do on the financial advisor side, right? An exchange, any of that. So Yeah.
I think real estate, more often than not, comprises a significant chunk of someone's
Yeah,
net
absolutely.
worth, right? So I think it makes all the more sense. So no, I think it's a great approach to kind of complementing your the regular kind of set of services, right? Okay, so and the other topic I think I quite liked when we spoke briefly at Edge, Jeff, is and now that you're independent, you can do what you want, right? To some extent, is you have a very interesting view on how tech could be a lever, an enabler, right, to making your practice more efficient. You spoke about how you need to do everything now, and there's a little bit of that additional admin work or whatever, right, that has come in. But at the same time, you can now actually use tech to make things a bit leaner, simpler, more efficient. But I'll stop talking there. I'd love to kind of get your view on how you're approaching things when it comes to tech.
Yeah, no, I think that was it was great talking about that. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have a lot of the tech now, right? So we can, and I am certainly not utilizing everything to its fullest, right? Every piece that we sign up for has so many other facets to it, and I kind of focus on some of the main things, but I could definitely be better. But I think, yeah, I mean, we're at a really interesting time where not only are a lot of the financial technology companies adding more services and features, they're all integrating, which is nice. For the most part, they're integrating. And then we have tools like Zapier, right, that we can use to kind of stitch things together if they haven't quite integrated yet, right? If there is no API or a native integration. And so, I mean, it's just like when we do a financial plan, it doesn't come back perfect. I think a lot of advisors go, okay, well, it's technology. Like, I'm just going to leave it alone and it's not perfect. And, but I think we have the tools now to be able to spend a little bit of time and try to make it a little bit more cohesive even than it is, right?
And I think it's great with technology that I think I had someone in the industry talk about this. There are 3 different ways you can go about it. You can kind of do it yourself if you have the tech chops. You can build or you can buy. And I think all 3 options are, pretty available for an advisory shop as well, right? So I think
absolutely,
it's good. I mean, it makes total sense to leverage it where you can. Obviously, moving on from tech is our kind of favorite 2 letters. Mohan. Then as much as building an AI company, I myself was fatigued by the end of day 3 of wealth management Edge, hearing those 2 letters. But obviously, AI is here to stay in the times to come. What's been your experience?
Scary, right?
Sorry?
The sexy and the scary AI.
Correct. I think, one of my podcast guests had said you have to look at it as exciting, not daunting, and be on the right side of the spectrum. It can do wonders for you, and I completely agree with that. You mentioned you've been dabbling a little bit, right, in AI tools. How have you been kind of using it or trying it out?
Yeah, so I think, I started like probably most other people, right? Just trying to see if it could write an email or, seeing what responses it gave, watching it kind of develop and grow as this kind of race and battle has gone on, right? And try to pick a side and figure out where things integrate. I maybe have taken it a little bit farther than some advisors because I want to see where those different AI programs integrate on something like Zapier and see what other automations and things can be created. But, in our field, we have to be really mindful of what else it's touching, what else the AI is connected to. And so I think keeping it separate for now has made the most sense, right? So for us, like, it doesn't ever touch client data. It may see some of my thoughts and I may work through some things with it. But yeah, I mean, we've moved on from writing potential emails or, little blog posts to doing some back and forth research, right? And then correcting it and then seeing how things integrate. Just some of those time saving steps, right? But I mean, we've even used it for scanning our own website and then creating some of the search engine optimization for it, right? We've used it to build some of our kind of base calculators, and then we can take it off of the AI platform and give it to our developers that we use. And so we're in the process of that now, right? Where I've played with it, I've gotten maybe 80%, and then it goes to a human being separate from the AI as a standalone calculator with some inputs and outputs. And then that goes to a human at this point. Like, probably AI down the road will be a little bit more connected on all of those fronts. But I think it's going to be probably a while before hopefully anybody's really putting client information in.
I think, this human in the loop, and concept has been talked about at length, and it makes total sense. I think AI is not going to automate everything 100%, but even then, I think it significantly brings down the effort required today if you do it manually. Yeah. And sure, there might be errors too, but again, the errors will be fewer than perhaps someone does it manually. Yeah, the other piece, and this goes back a little bit to the work you're doing on leveraging tech as well. Definitely, we don't have to go into specifics on what you're trying to build. Is the focus more on the operational side, optimizing things, the workflows, and so on and so forth, or is it also to kind of help you in your advisory engagement?
Yeah,
where is the tech focus largely?
So I think I look at it on two different approaches. One, I think getting operational efficiency is really helpful, and we plan to continue to scale and grow and hire actual human beings. But I think anything that we're trying to build now, we're trying to build in a way that even when we do hire on additional staff, they will be that much more efficient because of what we built right on the automation side. And so, I want them to feel like they can accomplish a lot too, not just me here, right? Like I want to give them that power and the capability. So I think that's one side of it. And then I think my approach has been similar to the workflows, right? When some advisors are now starting to talk about workflows a lot more, and you say, look, if you're going to repeat this task, if this is something that you do for clients or you do for compliance on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis, right? If you're going to have to do it multiple times, then set up a best practice on the workflow and try to automate it, right? Systematize these things. And I think my approach has been that on the workflows. But then we've taken maybe that a step further. And that is, if there's something that we can do for a client and we look around and it's not out there, or someone else is maybe doing some of it, but it's not accessible to other advisors, or the tech is maybe still too expensive, then it's, look, if this is going to be something that we're going to see again in our practice, or it's something that we think is really interesting and we want to focus on more, maybe then we start to build a little bit of tech for that pain point. Right? Maybe we create a small solution and then maybe we turn that at some point into its own little program. Right? And that I think has been my approach, right? It is, instead of being reactive constantly, maybe I can turn this into something that's a little bit more offensive and kind of push it out there into the world. And that's been, I think, the most interesting and exciting thing to me over the last couple of years.
Interesting. And I like that the way you kind of articulated that, like before you automate or bring in tech, I think it's important for you to have standardized processes, workflows, and then try and identify areas where you can optimize it even further. And then that helps. And I really love the point that you bring people in and you give them good tech, then they can do more with their time.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a piece that I think people often miss out on, because the fear is that tech or AI will come and replace. It doesn't always have to replace. I'm excited to see what you throw out into the world, Jeff, as and when some of these build efforts take shape. Excited to see that happen. But it's been lovely talking to you. I think, like with every conversation, obviously we've talked shop, but it's always good to just understand what makes you happy outside drilling and advisory. What else do you like to do when you have some spare time?
Yeah, spare time is hard to come by these days, I feel. I have two sons that keep me busy. So we've been chasing a lot of Pokemon lately. Okay. With the nice weather. So I'm the chauffeur.
Yeah, I hear you, man. 2 kids. There's no time for hobbies and stuff. I think
I think I vaguely remember that I used to like art and cars, but I feel like it's been a while since I've got to do any of that.
Oh, sure. Amazing, Jeff. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure it's the first of many. So until next time.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.